from now.
This is the CBS Evening News with Roger Mudd substituting for Walter Cronkite.
Good evening. A young woman identified as a disciple in the cult of convicted mass murderer Charles Manson aimed a loaded pistol at President Ford at point-blank range today, but a Secret Service agent quickly grabbed the gun and no shot was fired. Phil Jones and Bob Schieffer report from Sacramento, California.
It was shortly after 10 o'clock California time when the president left his hotel. He had decided to walk across the street to the California State Capitol building where he planned to address the state legislature. Mr. Ford was surrounded by his usual complement of Secret Service agents. Everything was normal. The president walking fast and making his usual dash toward the people who were lined up along the walking route. The people were pushing and shoving to get closer. Not seen by the following cameras, but spotted by Secret Service agent Larry Boondorf, was a hand with a gun in it coming through the crowd. The president saw the same thing. The commotion erupted. Agent Boondorf grabbed the hand, twisting it and forcing the assailant to drop a loaded .45 caliber automatic pistol. At the same second, agents pushed the president, rushing him to the nearby Capitol building. Secret Service agents, joined by state and local police, forced the assailant to the ground and then handcuffed her. She was identified as 27-year-old Lynette Alice Fromm, one of the earliest followers of Charles Manson, who was involved in the Tate LaBianca murders of 1969. As she waited, Miss Fromm yelled at the spectators. I heard her saying, "It didn't go off," which was an apparent reference to the gun. And, obviously referring to the president, she said, "He's not a public servant." Eyewitnesses had seen Miss Fromm. She was wearing a long red dress. Witnesses say she was calm as she pulled the gun. They related what they saw after that.
I didn't really see anything. I just ran down here to shake his hand, and she was a couple people away from me. And I shook his hand, and he shook somebody else's hand. Next thing I know, he was flinching and backing away.
I looked down, and I saw that there was a girl standing next to me who I had seen previously milling about the crowd, and she had a gun in her hand. She had a handgun.
A few of those nearby thought they heard the click of a gun, but no shots were fired, and News Secretary Ron Nessen later indicated that it is possible that Agent Boondorf may have prevented the gun from firing.
In the process of this, Agent Boondorf sustained a slight cut on his right hand between his thumb and his first finger. He cut this on the gun. He's not sure exactly how he cut it. He's not sure whether it was cut on the firing hammer, which would have prevented the gun from firing.
Lynette Alice Fromm is now being held by federal officials. The U.S. attorney says she will be arraigned before the day is over, and that she will be charged with attempting to murder the President of the United States. The arraignment has been delayed while officials conduct psychiatric and drug tests on Miss Fromm. Also being questioned in the case is Sandra Good, a friend of Miss Fromm's, and also one of the Charles Manson girls. Bill Jones, CBS News, Sacramento.
Gerald Ford has always had a reputation for taking things in stride, and he lived up to it today. Within hours of the incident and seemingly unperturbed by it, he went ahead with a previously planned speech to the state legislature here. That speech, ironically, on the rising crime rate and the need to overhaul the criminal laws to give added protection to the victims of crime. He did not deviate from the text and made no mention of the incident, but a bit later, he praised the Secret Service and talked about it with reporters.
I am not sure that I ought to describe what I saw beyond the fact that I saw a hand coming up behind several others in the front row, and obviously there was a gun in that hand. I then saw almost instantaneously very quick and very effective action by the Secret Service in taking care of the matter. Your own thoughts, sir? I was very thankful.
The president was en route to California Governor Brown's office when the incident happened, but in the confusion of the moment, no one, including the president, thought to tell Brown about it. As a result, the two men chatted for some time, and a presidential aide told me tonight it was not until the end of that meeting, when Mr. Ford's chief of staff, Donald Rumsfeld, was briefing the president on some late developments in the case just given to him by the Secret Service, that Brown overheard that conversation and learned for the first time that an assassination attempt had been made just a few feet outside his office. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Sacramento.
Bill Curtis, who covered the 1971 Manson trial for CBS News, has prepared a profile of Lynette Fromm, the woman who faces the charge of attempting to kill the president.
Seated behind Charles Manson at his first arraignment was Lynette Fromm, a runaway teenager Manson found in California 8 years ago. He named her Squeaky, and she became one of the first members of his so-called family. A tiny girl with red hair, she, like the rest of the family, developed an intense loyalty to Manson. They believed he was the Messiah. The combination of sex and drug-taking and the presence of Manson led to the development of a twisted religious philosophy, and ultimately to Manson's engineering the Sharon Tate murders. But the loyalty was unusual. During the trial, Lynette Squeaky Fromm was among several followers who shaved their heads and put X's in their foreheads. And even after Manson was found guilty of the Tate LaBianca murders, she and other family members remained together, always trying to stay in touch with Manson. Just 2 days ago, her request to see Manson at San Quentin was turned down. She has been living in Sacramento with family member Sandra Good. A woman who identified herself by that name made a telephone threat this afternoon in Sacramento. She said, "If Ford continues to run this country against the law, your homes will be bloodier than the Tate LaBianca homes and My Lai put together." Sandra Good now remains as one of the few Manson followers still out of jail. Bill Curtis for CBS News, Chicago.
The head of the White House Secret Service telephoned Mrs. Ford in Washington to tell her of the incident. The First Lady called it something you just have to live with. Vice President Rockefeller was making a swing through upstate New York when he got the word. Connie Chung reports.
Rockefeller was here in Rochester to dedicate a hospital. Security was tight, although at the time there was no word of the apparent assassination attempt. Later at a news conference, Rockefeller told reporters he learned of the incident when he received a telephone call from Washington.
Well, I think it's a tragic situation that people resort to an attempt of that kind.
Vice President, is it a good idea for you to be out of town at the same time as the President is out of Washington?
Well, it's a big country, and we're both in the country.
That sort of thing worry you, Mr. Vice President?
No, sir. Because that's a risk you take. If you join one of the armed forces, you take that risk, and if you go into public life, you take it, and there's an awful lot of innocent citizens who are not involved in anything who get into serious situations. So that this is one of the tragedies of the time in which we live.
He was asked what went through his mind when he first learned of the shooting attempt.
The president was all right.
No, but what went through your mind?
That's what went through my mind. Thank God he was all right.
Rockefeller did not interrupt his schedule. He went on to Greece, New York to dedicate another hospital and meet with Republican Party leaders. Connie Chung, CBS News, Rochester, New York.
In Washington, Chairman Tom Foley interrupted a hearing of his House Agriculture Committee to announce the apparent assassination attempt and that Mr. Ford was unharmed. When the hearing room hubbub died down, Republican Congressman James Johnson of Colorado said, quote, "Mr. Chairman, I think the record should show that for the first time since McKinley, we have a Republican president worth shooting, and I think that's a good sign."
On those occasional nights you can't fall asleep by yourself, fall asleep with the help of Nitol. Nitol contains a tested ingredient that helps you feel drowsy, so you can fall asleep. Nitol, take as directed for safe, restful sleep. Sleep, it's a beautiful feeling.
Nitol.
Are you going to buy that thing? Or are you going to play with it all day?
Get your weekend rolling. Bowling costs so little and there's always lots of fun to share. Every weekend at your nearby bowling center. Yeah, we've got the lanes to spare.
George, come with me.
We've got the lanes to spare.
Reports from the federal government today show the pace of rising prices slowed down during August, but unemployment stayed at July's high rate. Neil Strauser reports.
Although unemployment remained at 8.4%, the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Julius Shiskin, found signs that the recovery is clearly underway, but just barely. More teenagers and blacks joined the unemployment rolls, but more of what Shiskin called the job losers, adult males and family heads, went back to work, particularly in the key manufacturing area.
The job losers who were hurt most by the recession were mainly in heavy industry. Heavy industry is improving now, so they're getting their jobs back. On the other hand, the teenagers and blacks, mainly black women, by the way, who were not primarily involved in those industries, are not getting jobs back, and they're still hurting a lot. Now, everybody's still hurting because, in absolute terms, not everybody, but a lot of people, the unemployment rate is still very high, and the employment level is still well below a year ago, but we're on our way back.
The wholesale price report showed the rate of increase falling off from 1.2% in July to 0.8% in August, and Shiskin said the actual increase may have been even lower. Farm prices fell sharply, down 1.5%, but Shiskin pointed to a 0.6 rise in more stable industrial prices, something he said to worry about. Rising fuel prices accounted for much of that increase. Neil Strauser, CBS News, Washington.
Striking coal miners have refused United Mine Workers President Arnold Miller's plea to return to work. Instead, the strike, now 26 days old, has spread to additional mines in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky. The Postal Service said today it will not increase mail rates until after Christmas, when the cost of a first-class stamp will rise from 10 to 13 cents. Averages were down on the New York Stock Exchange today. The volume was 11,700,000 shares. The average price per share lost 19 cents on the New York Exchange, 4 cents on the American.
There's something very special inside Fleischmann's margarine. 100% corn oil. Of all leading margarines, only Fleischmann's is made from 100% corn oil. Fleischmann's is high in polyunsaturates, low in saturated fat, and it has no cholesterol.
The fresh, delicious taste of 100% corn oil makes Fleischmann's my family's favorite margarine.
For high polyunsaturates, great taste, serve Fleischmann's, the only leading margarine made from 100% corn oil.
Problems, they're my business. But the last thing I need is a problem with my laxative.
Phillips works and it doesn't interfere with your day.
Right. It doesn't cramp your style.
Things are rough all over. Does your laxative have to be rough, too?
Phillips formula works a special gentle way, and usually without discomfort.
Yeah, you could say it doesn't cramp my style.
Thank heavens for Phillips.
Phillips Milk of Magnesia. Regular, chocolate, or mint. Phillips works, and
it doesn't cramp your style.
Pro-communist former Premier Vasco Gonçalves bowed out of the Portuguese government altogether tonight. He turned down the post of Chief of the Armed Forces after anti-Gonçalves Army and Air Force officers boycotted a meeting of the nation's military assembly. His removal opens the way for a possible solution to Portugal's political crisis. Secretary Kissinger discussed his new Mideast agreement at the UN today with Secretary General Waldheim. Later, Kissinger said he could sell it to the Kremlin. The Soviets object to stationing 200 Americans in the Sinai buffer zone, but Kissinger said the Russians aren't likely to delay necessary approval of the agreement by the UN Security Council.
I expect that when the Soviet foreign minister comes to New York, that he and I will have an extended conversation on this subject. And I believe that at the end of that conversation, we will reach an understanding about the relationship between the UN activities and the really rather small U.S. activities, which are not part of the UN mandate, but which will nevertheless be related to the UN activities. So I don't expect that we will face an insoluble problems.
In London, a bomb explosion killed 2 persons and injured more than 40 others, including 4 Americans, at the Hilton Hotel today. About 100 people were in the lobby when the bomb went off. Authorities said it may have been the work of a breakaway faction of the Irish Republican Army, believed responsible for 4 other bombings in England last week.
Remember
were the old days when every home had a plunger. It was a good idea, using pressure to push out the clog. Only trouble was it didn't work very fast. But today there's new Drano aerosol plunger. It works with pressure the way a plunger works, only much faster and much better. It contains no lye or acid, and its pressure concentrated formula unclogs instantly. Watch. New Drano aerosol plunger plunges away clogs instantly.
If you sometimes suffer burning pain or itch of hemorrhoidal tissues, use Preparation H for hours of comfort in many cases. Preparation H starts with an ingredient recognized as soothing by experts on hemorrhoids, then adds ingredients that go beyond soothing. Preparation H actually helps shrink swelling of hemorrhoidal tissues caused by inflammation. For temporary relief of hemorrhoid symptoms, get Preparation H. Goes beyond soothing, helps shrink swelling of hemorrhoidal tissues.
Louisville and surrounding Jefferson County, Kentucky began the second day of court-ordered busing today. Attendance was 9% higher than yesterday, but still sharply off. There were some protest demonstrations, but no major incidents. In Boston, which has become the symbol of northern resistance to forced busing, an expanded phase of busing begins on Monday. The atmosphere is so highly charged in Boston that one city newspaper, the Herald American, devoted its entire front page to pictures of prominent Bostonians who advocate that no physical violence disrupt the opening of schools. Mike Lee has a report.
The summer dust is being washed off Boston's fleet of bright yellow school buses. But some of the neighborhoods they're headed for next week will be hostile territory, most notably the all-white, close-knit community of Charlestown, home of the battleship Old Ironsides and Bunker Hill Monument, scene of the first major battle of the American Revolution. And that's what most of the townies of Charlestown think they have on their hands with forced busing, a revolution.
We just ain't gonna let them in. Looks like they might be in South Boston, but they ain't gonna get in here.
What's gonna keep them out?
People gotta keep them out. What's the sense of putting them in, what are they forcing them in here for? We don't want them.
Anti-busing forces have organized an information center with a powder keg as their symbol. They claim to be nonviolent and non-racist, and instead criticize forced busing as a threat to their freedom and their children's safety.
Well, I plan to boycott my children. My two girls have been assigned to Roxbury. I'm pulling the two girls out because it's a very dangerous area. I don't want my children in there.
Safety is also a major concern among black families, many of whom plan to keep their children off the buses, at least at first.
They just want her to go to Charlestown. And we have two schools in our neighborhood that she can go to. And I'm just not going to send her out there.
Other blacks who are not wild about busing are going along with it in hopes it will mean a better education for their children.
I'm not too pleased with forced busing. I feel that children should be able to attend the schools within the area that they are living. But if this is what has to be, we have to accept it.
Officials at all levels have been working throughout the summer to come up with a safety plan. More police and more school monitors to work with teachers. And a court-appointed biracial parents' council will monitor the schools inside and out. One headmaster is optimistic that the appetite for violence has been curbed.
Parents were very concerned, large numbers of parents, about turning their neighborhoods around so that school can open on a calm note this year. I think that perhaps we're starting to feel some of the backlash of the violence that we had in Boston last year.
But police are preparing for the worst, even to the point of calling in a public opinion expert to assess the tension.
You're dealing with a city that is almost monolithic in its opposition to the program that you're charged with trying to help to implement.
Our posture this year is to be very strong. We're going to tell people to move, and if they don't, they're going to be advised, they're going to be arrested, and if they don't move, they will be arrested. We tried to be nice guys last year, and people took advantage of us.
Meanwhile, in a remote section of Maine, 400 black and white Boston students attended a leadership camp.
This camp, it doesn't prepare you for racial tensions, but it brings you here and it prepares you to be a leader so that when you can go back into the community and trouble starts coming up, you can tell people, how they can handle it.
These kids could help head off trouble in the schools, but racial harmony is easier to come by in the countryside of Maine than the streets of Boston. And when the buses roll next week, no one really knows what to expect. Mike Lee, CBS News, Naples, Maine.
The water emergency in Trenton, New Jersey ended today as damaged pumps were repaired and turned on, giving the city its first fresh supply of water in 4 days. Eric Severide comments tonight on the latest near tragedy in American politics, the apparent attempt to kill Mr. Ford.
President Ford's journey westward has to do essentially with politics, party politics, with the forces of the right and the forces of the left within nominal Republican ranks. And it was all very nearly ended today by the force of the psychopathic extreme, the wandering, half-hidden bands and individuals whose ideas, or rather feelings, have nothing to do with political reality, with parties, or the real needs of the people. The young woman may have acted alone, like the assailants of the two Kennedys and Governor Wallace. She may have been part of a harebrained conspiracy involving others. In any case, these are very sick people who cannot be placated or persuaded, who can only be detained and treated as best that others can do it. This episode today appears to have been as close a call as there can be. Even the heavy, clumsy .45 cannot miss at a 2-foot distance. The projectile from this weapon, which was designed, as we recall it, to knock down as well as kill jungle guerrilla fighters in the Filipino War, it can shatter a buffalo. We have to face the fact that great numbers of the criminally insane are loose in the American population, and since Dallas in '63, political leadership has been in their mental gun sights. Spectacular acts of violence lead to more such acts and attempted acts. There will now be efforts to persuade the president not to walk among crowds anymore. He will probably reject the advice. It is against his own nature and lifelong habit to keep physically remote from voters and against the American tradition. If he decides to keep at it, then there is almost nothing anyone can do, and he will run the risk of assassination every day he is on the road. The most efficient preventive measures conceivable cannot detect in advance and apprehend all the dangerously sick egos in the land. This attempt on Gerald Ford apparently was made simply because he is the president, not because he is Gerald Ford. There's nothing particularly abrasive, upsetting, or contentious about his personality to bring out deadly hatred in anyone. And he is not young, handsome, and rich like the Kennedys, a combination intolerable to some types of paranoid males. The deadly peril this time came from a female, something new in the history of American killings and attempts at the highest political level. The psychologists will make of that what they can. It is an old folk argument whether nice guys finish last or first, but it's clear now that in this American age of guns and violence, nice guys, too, can be finished, tragically.
A Detroit newspaper said today that the FBI is investigating reports that Teamsters President Frank Fitzsimmons met with 2 mafia figures in a Detroit restaurant several days before Jimmy Hoffa disappeared. Fitzsimmons has denied that the meeting took place. Also in Detroit today, a district court judge ordered that the car the FBI said may have been used in Hoffa's abduction be returned to its owner. The judge said the FBI had failed to prove that the car was used in Hoffa's disappearance. A federal grand jury in Brooklyn today indicted a Long Island bank and 3 of the officers who ran it for funneling more than $200,000 of the bank's money into political contributions. Some of the money went to the Nixon campaign. The bank, Security National, is now being liquidated. The officials, Patrick Clifford, David Dowd, and Frank Powell, are accused of having employees contribute to local, state, and federal campaigns and reimbursing them with fake salary increases.
Have you considered comparing whole wheat total with the leading natural cereals? You'll see there's a big difference. 1 ounce of fortified total gives you 100% of the recommended daily allowance of all these important vitamins and iron. 1 ounce of the leading natural cereals gives you no more than 6%. Check the vitamins and iron listed on the side panels. You'll see 100% versus 6%. That's the total difference.
You know, it takes time to learn how to handle our family's financial security properly. Do you have the time? I don't. In fact, today it really takes an expert, like a well-trained life insurance representative, especially one who's experienced in related financial areas. If you don't know one, I recommend that you see a mutual benefit representative. I did, and he helped me.
Not so long ago, an average tennis tournament was played in a nearly mute stadium watched by overly polite fans. No more. There is a new breed of tennis spectator. Charles Osgood has been watching the crowd at Forest Hills.
Once upon a time, Forest Hills meant gentlemen in white flannel, ladies in long dresses. In those days, players and spectators tended to be refined. Tennis was a social event, and part of the image included the lawn in lawn tennis, and off-court there'd be tables with white linen, picnic baskets with chicken breasts and aspic, and champagne to sip. But it's 1975. My, how things have changed here at the U.S. Open. Not a straw voter in sight. And to judge from the crowd, we could be in Shea Stadium instead of Forest Hills. The question is no longer tennis anyone. Now, it's tennis practically everyone. And the fans dress differently now, and eat differently, and act differently. And so do the players. So Romania's Ilie Nastase, Nasty as he's nicknamed, lost here yesterday to Manuel Olantes of Spain. There was a disputed line call, and you could easily see that the old-fashioned rules of deportment for players and spectators no longer apply. The crowd here is not like the one at, let us say, Wimbledon.
The crowds at Wimbledon are very quiet, and they don't respond as well, and they're more proper. But the crowds here is just like going to a baseball or football game, you know, they're really wild.
Also fairly wild is the commercialization of the event. Commercial is the word. 23 million Americans play tennis now, according to one estimate. That means a big market. And everybody at Forest Hills seems to be selling something. Sometimes the promoting goes on right on court. So it's not just the grass that's gone, not just the Hartrue surface that's new, or the lights for night play, not even the plastic geraniums. What has changed most about tennis is its image. Charles Osgood, CBS News, Forest Hills, New York.
Walter Cronkite returns on Monday. That's the news this Friday night. I'm Roger Mudd, CBS News. Good night.
Gentlemen, a toast to Cookie, who says the customer is always right, whose recipes never falter, who's known as the Shakespeare of chefdom. Cookie, I have a warm feeling for your meatloaf. It's called heartworm. So I drink to you, pal, with Alka-Seltzer Gold.
New Alka-Seltzer Gold starts to work as fast as you drink it to neutralize excess acid.
Hey, when you get heartburn or acid indigestion, give it the toast of the town.
I have to tell you about Morningstar Farms' newest idea, breakfast strips. They taste like good, crisp bacon with no cholesterol, no animal fat, because they're made from textured vegetable protein. And I have to tell you, they're great if you're on a budget, because they cost less than bacon. Why? They shrink less. One package gives you about as much delicious eating as a pound of bacon. Just how delicious? That I don't have to tell you.
Breakfast strips in the Morningstar Farms section of your grocer's freezer.
This has been the CBS Evening News, with Roger Mudd substituting for Walter Cronkite, who will return on Monday. Yasser Arafat, leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization, will be the guest this Sunday on Face the Nation. This is CBS.
WLAC-TV, Nashville.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Clark, and in the news tonight we'll have a special report coming up on that attempted assassination of President Ford. A closed meeting highlights the latest in the political developments surrounding the state's mental institutions. An adult theater reopens in Tullahoma, Tennessee, and Mayor Fulton talks about possible layoffs, while Ron Kaiser talks about the rain.
Chris, has been raining a little bit, and as I stand here, it looks and feels as if it's going to start raining again right here.
Okay, maybe Ron's luck will not hold out and he'll get wet.